My parents posted my photo with the caption, "Nayan promised to give her sister an apartment at the graduation party. They trapped me." But at the party, I raised my glass and made a toast. After the first words, they turned pale. "Well, let's go. My name is Nayan, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a public relations specialist at a big industrial company, and I make decent money. 3 years ago, I bought my own apartment with a mortgage, and last year, I inherited my grandmother's apartment when she passed away. But let me tell you how I got here, because my story starts way back when I was just a kid. I was 10 when my dad died. Heart attack, completely unexpected. One day he was there teaching me to ride my bike, and the next day he was gone. My mom was devastated, and honestly, so was I. Dad was everything to me. A year later, Mom married Steve. He seemed nice enough at first, I guess. Mom was lonely, and Steve made her smile again. I thought maybe things would get better. Then, when I was 12, Mom had another baby, my half-sister Emma. That's when everything changed. From the moment Emma was born, it was like I became invisible. Mom spent every waking moment with the baby. Steve only cared about his own daughter. And me? I became the unpaid babysitter and housekeeper. "Maiden, can you watch Emma while I take a shower?" Mom would say every single day. "Maiden, the dishes need me doing," Steve would add, not even looking up from his newspaper. "Maiden, Emma needs her bottle." Mom would call from the other room. It never ended. I was 13 and doing more housework than most adults. My grades started slipping because I was always tired from taking care of Emma and cleaning the house. I had no friends because I could never hang out after school. I had to rush home to babysit. One day my grandmother came to visit. Grandma Ruth was my dad's mother, and she was sharp as a tack. She watched how Mom and Steve treated me for about an hour before she pulled Mom into the kitchen. I heard them talking, even though they thought I couldn't. "Patricia, that girl is miserable," Grandma said bluntly. "It's just hard with the baby, Ruth. I need Nayan's help," Mom replied, but her voice sounded defensive. "She's not your servant. She's your daughter. Look at her. When's the last time you saw her smile?" There was a long pause. Then Mom said, "I don't know what you want me to do. I can't be in two places at once. Let her come live with me." Another pause. Then I heard Steve's voice. "That might actually work better." I couldn't believe it. My own stepfather sounded relieved at the idea of getting rid of me. Mom came out of the kitchen and looked at me sitting on the couch, holding Emma while she napped. "Maiden, honey, would you like to go live with Grandma Ruth for a while?" I didn't even hesitate. Yes. Steve actually smiled when I said it. Mom nodded, like she'd expected that answer. "Okay, then we'll get everything arranged." I packed my stuff that same day. It wasn't much, mostly clothes and a few books. I left behind the room that had never really felt like mine anyway. Living with Grandma was like stepping into a different world. She was a college literature professor, and her apartment was filled with books from floor to ceiling. She cooked real meals every night, and we'd sit at the table and talk about everything. School, books, movies, life. "You don't have to clean my house, Nayan," she told me on my first day. "That's my job. Your job is to be a kid and do well in school." It felt too good to be true. No one yelling at me to change diapers or do dishes. No one treating me like I was in the way. Grandma actually seemed happy to have me there. 4 months later, Grandma sat me down for a serious talk. "I've officially adopted you, sweetheart. Your mother signed over her parental rights." I stared at her. "What does that mean?" "It means you're legally my daughter now. This is your home for as long as you want it to be." Part of me felt crushed. My own mother had given up on me that easily, but another part of me felt relief. I was safe now. I had someone who actually wanted me around. My grades improved dramatically. I made friends at school. I read constantly, devouring every book in Grandma's collection. For the first time since Dad died, I felt like I belonged somewhere. I rarely saw Mom, Steve, and Emma after that. When I did visit them for holidays or birthdays, it was obvious they were happier without me there. They'd be polite enough, but I could see the relief in their eyes when I left. Mom would post tons of photos of Emma on Facebook, Emma's first steps, Emma's birthday parties, Emma's school plays. I never saw a single photo of myself on her page, so I stopped visiting altogether. What was the point? I graduated high school with honors, went to college on scholarships, and got my degree in communications. Grandma was so proud. She came to my graduation and cried when they called my name. After college, I found this job and moved into my own place. That's when Mom suddenly wanted to reconnect. She called me out of the blue one day. Nadine, honey, I think we should start fresh. Put the past behind us. I was curious enough to give it a try. We started meeting up for holidays. Christmas, Thanksgiving, Emma's birthday. I'd bring expensive gifts for Emma, who was a teenager by then. Mom and Steve would nod approvingly when Emma opened my presents, like they were pleased I was fulfilling my role as the generous big sister. Emma never seemed particularly grateful, but she was just a kid. I figured she'd warm up to me eventually. This went on for years. We had what I thought was a decent relationship. Not close, but civil. Then last year, Grandma died. She was 89 and lived a good life, but losing her broke my heart. She'd been the only real parent I'd ever known. At the reading of her will, I learned she'd left me her apartment and $150,000. I also learned something I hadn't known before. She owned the house where Mom and Steve were living. Apparently, she'd owned it for decades, and when Dad died, she'd let Mom stay there out of kindness. I didn't know what to do with that information, so I decided to leave things as they were. Mom never brought it up, and neither did I. Mom asked if Emma could live in Grandma's apartment rentray while she finished college. I said yes. It seemed like the right thing to do, even though I was losing out on rental income. Everything seemed fine. We were a functional family, or so I thought. I was at work reviewing a press release for our latest product launch when my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer. We usually only talked around holidays, but something made me pick up. Hi, Mom. What's up, Maiden? Honey, I'm calling about Emma's graduation gift. I leaned back in my office chair. Emma had just graduated from college a few weeks ago. I'd been at the ceremony, clapping when they called her name, watching Mom and Steve beam with pride. It was actually kind of nice to see the family happy together. Yeah, I've been thinking about that. I was planning to send her on a trip to Mexico for a week. Let her celebrate before she starts job hunting. There was a pause on the other end. Not a good pause. Well, that's nice, but I think she needs something more substantial. I frowned. More substantial? Mom, a week in Mexico isn't cheap. It's a great graduation gift. Nadine, you know Emma's been living in your grandmother's apartment for a year now. She's used to having her own space. A young person needs somewhere to live, somewhere to build their life. I could see where this was heading, and I didn't like it. Mom, Emma, is living there rent-free. Do you know how much other college students pay for apartments? She's getting a huge break already, but now that she's graduated, she can keep living there, I interrupted. I never said she had to move out, but I'm not giving her the apartment if that's what you're asking. Mom's voice got that sharp edge I remembered from my childhood. Nadine, she's your sister. Family helps family. You've been so generous over the years, paying for her college. Helping with college was one thing. This is different. How is it different? You have your own apartment. You don't need two places. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I don't need to explain my financial decisions to you, Mom. The Mexico trip is a generous gift. Emma should be grateful. Grateful. Mom's voice rose. After everything we've been through as a family, after how hard we've worked to rebuild our relationship, this is how you repay that. Repay what exactly? I've been nothing but generous to Emma. I helped pay for 4 years of college. I let her live rent-free in an apartment I could be making money on. What more do you want from me? I want you to do the right thing. I want you to help your sister get started in life. She is getting help. Free housing is help. Mom was quiet for a moment, and I thought maybe she was finally getting it. Then she said, Think about it, Nyan. Really? Think about what's right here. I have thought about it. Mexico trip. That's my final offer. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling that familiar knot in my stomach I used to get as a kid, the feeling that nothing I did would ever be enough for them. I shook it off and went back to work, hoping that was the end of it. 2 weeks passed without any contact from my family. I figured Mom had gotten the message and accepted my decision. Emma would get her Mexico trip, she'd have fun, and life would go on. Then my phone buzzed with a notification. Mom had posted something new on Facebook, and my name was tagged. That was weird. She hardly ever tagged me in anything. I clicked on the notification and felt my blood turn cold. There was a photo from last Christmas, the four of us standing around the tree: Mom, Steve, Emma, and me. We all looked happy and normal, like a real family. But it was the caption that made my hands shake. Nayan promised to give an apartment to her younger sister in honor of graduating from college. I thank God for such a generous and kind eldest daughter. I read it 3 times, thinking I must have misunderstood. But no, there it was, in black and white. Mom had publicly announced that I was giving Emma my grandmother's apartment. The comments were already pouring in. What a wonderful big sister. So generous. Emma is so lucky. This is what family is all about. Maiden, you're an angel. I felt sick. She'd done this on purpose, posted it publicly, knowing I'd be trapped. How could I possibly comment and say it wasn't true? I'd look like a liar, or worse, like I was backing out on a promise. My hands were shaking as I dialed her number. She picked up on the second ring. Hello, Nayan. What the hell did you just do? I was trying to keep my voice down since I was still at the office, but I was furious. I don't know what you mean. The Facebook post. You told everyone I'm giving Emma the apartment. Oh, that. Her voice was completely calm, almost amused. Well, aren't you? No, I told you I wasn't. I told you the Mexico trip was my final offer. I thought you might change your mind once you had time to think about it. By lying to everyone on social media? Are you insane? Now she dropped the innocent act. Her voice got cold and calculating. I posted it so you couldn't back out. Emma's having her graduation party at Romano's restaurant this Saturday. There will be about 50 people there. Family, friends, college classmates. You're going to bring the apartment deed and transfer papers all signed and ready to go. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And if I don't, then I'll make sure everyone knows you're a liar. I'll tell them you promised Emma the apartment and then broke your word. You work in public relations, Nayan. How's that going to look when word gets around that you can't be trusted to keep your promises? Think your company will want to keep someone with that kind of reputation? I was speechless. My own mother was threatening to destroy my career. You have until Saturday, Nayan. Bring the papers, or deal with the consequences. She hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, my heart pounding. I couldn't believe she'd actually done this. She'd set a trap and was trying to force me into it. I immediately called Emma's number. Maybe she didn't know what Mom was planning. Maybe I could reason with her. Hey, Nan. Emma's voice was casual, like nothing was wrong. Emma, did you see what Mom posted on Facebook? Yeah, I saw it. Did you know she was going to do that? There was a pause. Yeah, we talked about it. My heart sank. And you're okay with this? With her lying and trying to blackmail me? Emma laughed, actually laughed. Blackmail? Come on, Nayan. You've got 2 apartments and I've got none. It's not exactly fair. I earned my apartment, I worked for it, and you've been living rent-free in Grandma's place for a year. Yeah, and I'm grateful for the handout. But now I want something permanent, something that's actually mine. Handout? I was stunned. I paid for your college education. And I appreciated the charity. But this is different. This is about my future. She hung up too. I sat there on my couch that night, staring at the ceiling. 3 people I'd called family had just revealed themselves to be complete strangers. People who thought they could manipulate and threaten me into giving up property worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then, despite everything, I started laughing. They thought they were so clever. They thought they had me trapped. They had no idea what they just started. The next morning, I went to my home office and pulled out the box of documents I'd gotten after Grandma's funeral. Her will, property deeds, insurance papers, stuff I'd barely looked at since the lawyer handed it all to me. I found Grandma's will and read through it carefully this time. The apartment Emma was living in, that was mine, obviously. The $150,000, mine too. But then I saw something that made me sit up straight. The property located at 847 Maple Street. That was Mom and Steve's address, the house they'd been living in for over 20 years. According to this document, Grandma owned it, and now I owned it. I read that section 3 times to make sure I understood it correctly. The house where my mother and stepfather lived belonged to me. It had belonged to my grandmother, and before that, to my great-grandmother. Apparently, when Dad died, Grandma had let Mom stay there out of kindness. But it was never Mom's house. I'd known this information for a year, ever since the will reading, but I'd pushed it to the back of my mind. I didn't want to complicate things. I thought we were all getting along fine. So why rock the boat? Well, now the boat was already rocked. Time to see how deep the water really was. I called my lawyer, David Morrison. I'd used him for my apartment purchase, and he was good at explaining complicated stuff in simple terms. David, it's 9. I need to ask you about some property inheritance issues. Sure thing. What's going on? I explained the situation, how my family was living in a house that I'd inherited, how they'd been there for decades but never actually owned it. Do they have any tenant rights? I asked. David was quiet for a moment. Did they ever sign a lease, pay rent, any formal agreement? No, nothing like that. My grandmother just let them live there after my dad died. Then legally, they're what we call guests or licensees. You can ask them to leave at any time. There's no formal eviction process required. What if I wanted to make it official? Eviction papers? We could do that. Gives you a paper trail, makes it clear this is a legal matter. How much time do you want to give them? I thought about Saturday's party, about Mom's smug voice on the phone, about Emma calling my help charity. 30 days. I can have the papers ready by tomorrow afternoon. Same thing for the apartment your sister is staying in? Yes, both properties. Nayan, can I ask what's going on here? This seems sudden. I gave him the short version, the Facebook post, the blackmail, the threats to my career. David whistled. Wow, okay. Yeah, let's get those papers drawn up right away. And Nayan, you might want to document everything. Save those Facebook posts. Record phone calls if your state allows it. This sounds like it could get messy. Already ahead of you on that one. After I hung up, I sat back in my chair and smiled for the first time in days. They wanted to play games? Fine. But they were about to learn they'd picked the wrong opponent. Saturday came, and I drove to Romano's restaurant feeling weirdly calm. I picked up the eviction papers from David that morning. They were sitting in my purse, all official and legal looking. The restaurant was decorated with balloons and a big "Congratulations, Emma" banner. About 50 people were there, just like Mom had said. Family members I hadn't seen in years. Emma's college friends, neighbors, family friends. Everyone was in a great mood, drinking and laughing. I spotted Emma right away. She was wearing a new dress and looked happy, holding court with a group of her college friends. When she saw me, she gave me a big wave and a smile that looked completely genuine. For a second, I almost felt bad about what I was going to do. Mom appeared at my elbow almost immediately. Nayan, you made it. Did you bring the papers? She said it quietly, but her eyes were hard. We'll see, Mom. Steve came over and gave me an awkward hug. Great to see you, Nayan. Big day for Emma, huh? Sure is, I said, smiling faintly. I made small talk with relatives and ate dinner, acting like everything was normal. But I could feel Mom watching me the whole time, waiting. Finally, it was time for toasts. People stood up with their wine glasses and said nice things about Emma's achievements, how proud they were, how bright her future looked, all that stuff. Then Mom stood up and tapped her glass with a spoon. I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate Emma's graduation, and I have a special announcement. She looked directly at me. Emma's big sister Nayan wants to share some exciting news about her graduation gift. Everyone turned to look at me. All those faces, all those expectations. Mom was smiling, but her eyes were like ice. I stood up slowly and looked around the room. These people thought they were about to witness a moment of family generosity. They had no idea what was really happening. Thanks, Mom. Actually, I do have an announcement. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recording app. I'd learned to always record conversations in my PR work. People say things in meetings and then deny it later. I thought a lot about Emma's graduation gift this week, I said, and I decided not to give her anything. There was a collective gasp. Emma's face went white. Mom's mouth dropped open. You see, my family tried to blackmail me into giving Emma my inherited apartment. They posted lies on social media to try to force my hand. They threatened my career, so I thought everyone should hear what really happened. I pressed play on my phone. Mom's voice filled the restaurant. I posted it so you couldn't back out. Nayan, Emma's having her graduation party at Romano's restaurant this Saturday. You're going to bring the apartment deed and transfer papers all signed and ready to go. Then I'll make sure everyone knows you're a liar. You work in public relations, Nayan. How's that going to look when word gets around that you can't be trusted to keep your promises? The recording played for about 2 minutes. You could hear a pin drop in that restaurant. When it finished, I put my phone away and pulled out the eviction papers. Mom's hands were shaking as she read them. What is this? She whispered. Eviction notice. For the house you live in. The house that actually belongs to me, inherited from Grandma. You have 30 days to find a new place. I turned to Emma, who was crying now, and handed her identical papers. Same for you. 30 days to get out of the apartment. I looked around the room at all the shocked faces. Since everyone's here, I thought you should know the truth. That house they live in, it's mine. Has been for a year. I let them stay there because I thought we were family. Turns out I was wrong. Mom was staring at the papers like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. This can't be legal, she said. Call a lawyer if you want, I replied, but I think you'll find it's completely legal. I smiled at Emma. Congratulations on your graduation, sis. Welcome to adulthood. Then I walked out of that restaurant and didn't look back. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in weeks. My phone started ringing before I even got out of my car. Mom's name on the screen. I declined the call. It rang again. Emma this time. Declined. Steve. Declined. Mom again. Declined. By the time I got inside my apartment, I had 12 missed calls and my voicemail was full. I didn't listen to any of them. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my couch, looking out at the city lights. For the first time in my adult life, I felt completely free from my family's expectations and manipulations. My phone kept buzzing with text messages. I finally looked at them out of curiosity. Mom, Nadine, please call me. We need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding. Emma, you can't do this to us. Where are we supposed to live? Steve, this is crazy. Nadine, your mom is having a panic attack. Mom, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Please don't do this to your family. Emma, I'm your sister. How can you be so cruel? Mom, we raised you better than this. That last one made me laugh out loud. They raised me? Mom had given up her parental rights when I was 13. Grandma raised me. I turned my phone off and went to bed. The next morning, someone was pounding on my door at 8:00 a.m. I looked through the peephole and saw all three of them standing there. Mom's eyes were red and puffy. Emma looked like she hadn't slept. Steve just looked uncomfortable. I opened the door, but didn't invite them in. What do you want? Mom immediately started crying. Nadine, honey, I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I was just trying to help Emma get started in life, and I went about it all wrong. You tried to blackmail me. I know, and I'm sorry, but please, you can't kick us out of our home. We've lived there for 20 years. It was never your home. It was Grandma's home, and she let you stay there out of kindness. Steve stepped forward. Nadine, be reasonable. We can't just find a new place in 30 days. Do you know how expensive rent is these days? Should have thought about that before you tried to steal my apartment. Emma was crying now, too. Where am I supposed to go? I don't have a job yet. I don't have money for rent. Figure it out. You're an adult now, remember? Mom grabbed my arm. Please, Nan, we're family. Family forgives each other. I pulled my arm away. Family doesn't blackmail each other either. What if we paid you rent? Steve asked suddenly. We could sign a lease, pay you every month. I looked at him. At least he was trying to be practical. How much? Mom jumped in quickly. Whatever's fair. We just need somewhere to live. I thought about it. Market rate for that house would be about $1,500 a month, but they'd caused me a lot of stress and anger. Down $200 a month for the house. Emma can stay in the apartment for $1,000 a month. Emma's eyes went wide. $1,000? I don't have a job. Then you better find one fast or move back in with Mommy and Daddy. Mom was nodding frantically. Yes, we can do $200. When would we start paying? First payment is due in 1 week. Miss a payment, you're out immediately. No second chances. Steve looked relieved. That's fair. We can do that. Emma was still crying. I can't afford $1,000 a month. I shrugged. Then move out. I can rent that apartment to someone else for the $500 easy. Mom turned to Emma. You'll move back home, honey. It'll be fine. Emma looked furious, but she didn't have much choice. I need lease agreements signed by tomorrow, I continued, and I want first month's rent up front, cash. They all nodded like bobbleheads. After they left, I called David to have him draft proper lease agreements. Then I called a property management company to handle the rental of Grandma's apartment once Emma moved out. True to their word, Mom and Steve signed the lease the next day and handed me $2,200 in cash. Emma packed up her stuff and moved back to her childhood bedroom, looking miserable the whole time. Within a week, I had the apartment listed for rent. I found a nice graduate student who was thrilled to pay $1,500 a month for such a great place. The extra money was incredible. Between the rent from Mom and Steve and the new tenant, I was bringing in an extra $2,700 a month. I used it to pay extra on my mortgage. Mom pays her rent on time every month. She transfers the money electronically, so we don't have to see each other. Same with the property management company. They handle everything with the apartment rental. I haven't spoken to any of them since that day they came begging at my door. Emma sends me angry texts sometimes, complaining about having to live with her parents again, but I don't respond. A few months ago, I ran into one of Mom's neighbors at the grocery store. She recognized me and made some comment about how generous I was to let my family rent from me at such reasonable rates. I just smiled and said, "Thanks." The truth is, I don't consider them family anymore. They showed me who they really are when they thought they could manipulate and threaten me. They're just tenants now, business associates who send me money every month. I've made new friends at work and started dating again. I joined a book club that reminds me of the evenings I spent reading with Grandma. My life is peaceful and drama-free. Sometimes I think about what Grandma would say about all this. I think she'd be proud that I stood up for myself. She always told me to be strong and not let people take advantage of my kindness. Kindness without boundaries isn't kindness, she used to say. It's just being a doormat. I learned that lesson the hard way, but I learned it well. My family tried to steal from me, and instead they ended up paying me. They thought they were so clever with their little scheme, but they forgot one important thing. I'm not the scared little girl who used to babysit for free anymore. I'm a successful woman who owns property and knows how to protect herself. And I sleep just fine at night knowing that.